Welcome everyone. Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah. I'm very happy to see you all joining on the last day of Ramadan for this blessed month. How are you, my dear sister? Inshallah, you're well. Subhanallah. Subhanallah, the month passed by very, very fast. There's few hours left of the month. Let us use these hours in doing a lot of good deeds before this month is over. Allah knows who among us will live to see another Ramadan, and if we will have this opportunity to live through another Ramadan and do more good deeds. And inshallah, after Ramadan, we continue performing good deeds as well. We do not stop just because Ramadan is over. However, Ramadan is an opportunity because, as we said, the reward is multiplied in Ramadan. Subhanallah. So a person can accumulate a lot more reward during this blessed month. Inshallah ta'ala, we have an important lesson that we want to talk about today. We will get to that, inshallah, in a moment. And as I have told you last time, inshallah, we will continue in our lessons after Ramadan. I will be posting in the group, inshallah, as to when the lesson will be. And inshallah ta'ala, you will all join and invite others to join as well for attending these beneficial lessons. And as the scholars said, what people need nowadays the most of is learning the religious knowledge. Subhanallah, if we look around us, and many of you are seeing probably what I'm seeing as well, when we look around us and we see how ignorance is widely spread to the extent that so many people lack basic knowledge of matters in the belief, they lack that. Wa alaikum salam to the sister who said salam before. Many people nowadays around us lack basic knowledge among the knowledge of Islam. Subhanallah. So it is very important to spread the teachings of Islam. You might think that what we are talking about are topics that many people know, but unfortunately, we're living in times where so many people are ignorant about many things that are among the essentials of the belief. They're ignorant of them. Many people say with their tongues, La ilaha illallah, yet they contradict La ilaha illallah in their hearts. They have beliefs that contradict the testification of faith, and they don't even know that. So we need to learn ourselves and teach the fundamentals of the belief to other people as well. We need to spread this valuable knowledge. This knowledge, as we said, is more worthy than all the jewels in the world. You know, if somebody is a millionaire or a billionaire and they die, but they die as a disbeliever, what are these jewels going to do for them in the grave? They will not be of any benefit to them. Nothing. They will not be of any benefit to them when they are in the grave and they died and they were accountable and they died as a disbeliever. All these jewels that they had will not protect them from the punishment in the grave, nor from the punishment of hellfire, which will be forever for them. Subhanallah. So what is it that helps the person in the grave? The good deeds. The good deeds is what helps the person in their grave. And as we said, if you remember in our previous lessons, a condition for the good deeds to be accepted by Allah is for the person to be a Muslim, for the person to have the proper belief in Allah and His Messenger, for the person to truly believe in the verses of the Quran, for the person to believe in the verse, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, that Allah Ta'ala is not like His creation at all, for the person to clear Allah from resembling the creation. For those people who are attributing a body to God, they're not Muslims. Those people who are saying about Allah that He has hands, or that He has eyes, or that He has fingers, or that He sits, They are not Muslims. They are contradicting the verse, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Even if they say 100 times a day, La ilaha illallah, but if they have a belief opposite to La ilaha illallah, they're not Muslims. If they associate to Allah partners, they're not Muslims. Also, if they attribute to Allah what does not befit to be attributed to Him, they're not Muslims. Those people who claim that Allah is in the sky, they are resembling God to His creation. Who is in the sky? We spoke about that, the angels. The angels, they are the residents of the sky. And we said whatever is in a place, and the sky is a place. We said whatever is in a place has a volume, and volumes are created. It means this thing is created. Subhanallah, so whoever is saying about Allah that He is in the sky, he is saying about Allah that He is created. So this knowledge that we have is very, very precious, and we need to tell people about it. We need to have this belief until death and tell people about it, because this is what people need the most of nowadays. Inshallah ta'ala, we will start our lesson with some advices that were given by our beloved Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. And these are great advices to follow. And subhanallah, when we follow them with a sincere intention, seeking reward from Allah ta'ala, and this reminds me to remind you and myself to have a sincere intention in our heart now by attending this lesson. Okay, inshallah, you have a sincere intention seeking reward from Allah ta'ala. So these advices that we will talk about in a moment, when the person follows them, because one wants to follow the teaching of the Prophet alayhi salam, the person gets reward for that. And there is great benefit in following these advices. You might think that they are minor, and I will start with the first one. Our beloved Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam said, لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق. What does this hadith mean? It means, do not think little of a good deed, even if it is meeting your Muslim brother with a bright face. You know, when you see your Muslim brother, when a sister sees her Muslim sister, when the brother sees his Muslim brother, smile at each other with a sincere intention, not because you want this brother to give you something in return. No, do that for the sake of Allah. Do that following the teachings of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. The Prophet alayhi salam is telling us in this hadith, do not think little of a good deed, even if it is that, And many of us might think, is this a big thing? You know, for me to see my sister in Islam and meet her with a bright face, it is something big. The Prophet ﷺ is telling us, don't think little of it. So, my dear sister, when you meet your sister in Islam and you meet her with a bright face, have a sincere intention in your heart when doing that to follow the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. You don't know what your sister is going through. She might be sad, she might be going through difficulties, but your bright face might help her. It might lift some of the hardships off her shoulder when she sees you smiling in her face. Even that, don't think little of it. In another hadith, our beloved Prophet ﷺ said, تبسمك في وجه أخيك صدقة. It means smiling in the face of your Muslim brother with a sincere intention is rewardable. Subhanallah, you can gain reward by smiling in the face of your Muslim brother with a sincere intention. You need to remember the intention. So you are not doing that because you are expecting something in return from this other Muslim. No. You are not doing that because they gave you a gift. No. You are not doing that because, for example, they might do something for you. You want them to help you out when you are in need. No, you are not doing that for this reason. You are doing that for the sake of Allah. Following the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, you want to bring joy to the heart of your Muslim brother. You want to bring them joy, and you can do that even with a smile. So when you see your Muslim brother, do not frown in his face. My sister, when you meet your Muslim sister, do not frown in her face. You know, many of us have difficulties. Many of us are going through hardships, even if we don't show it, even if we don't complain, even if we don't share that with each other. Just because we are not telling each other about our difficulties and about our worries and about our hardships, it doesn't mean that we do not have them. We might have them and we might have many of them. But what good would that do if I meet my Muslim sister and I start complaining about my worries? What will that do? Instead, let me leave my worries behind and take the opportunity to gain reward, to look at the face of my Muslim sister and smile at her with a sincere intention, seeking reward from Allah. My sister might be going through difficulty herself as well, but this smile might help her out, and she might smile then in return. So this helps the feeling of bonding, the love between sisters, and for the brothers as well. The Muslim brother smiles in the face of his Muslim brother, and this helps for them to bond, for the love between them to increase. And we want that. We want Muslims to bond more with each other, okay? And to help each other to do that for the sake of Allah, not expecting something in return from that person, whether this person is good to you or not. You want to be good to them. You know, it was mentioned that there was a highly righteous person, and there was a person who was cussing him, and he was not answering him back. And this person was wondering, why isn't he answering back? He told him, it's you, I mean. He's telling him, it's you who I am cussing. And that person responded to him, and it's you I will not answer back to. Subhanallah, this takes self-control and remembering the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. For he taught us, if a person is not good to us, not to respond to them in the same manner, but rather to be good to the one who is good to us and to the one who is not good to us. So we show good manners to both. The Prophet ﷺ, this is the third advice I want to share with you. The Prophet ﷺ also said, Afshu salam, meaning to greet each other with the salam by saying Assalamu alaikum. So the sister sees her Muslim sister and she says to her, Assalamu alaikum. Subhanallah, there are so many opportunities to gain reward. Yet, unfortunately, because of social media, many Muslims nowadays have left the great manners that the Prophet ﷺ taught us about. They have left them, and instead, unfortunately, they have picked up habits of the kuffar. You see some Muslims, instead of greeting each other with Assalamu alaikum, they might tell each other hi or hello or what's up, I don't know, you know. I'm not saying this is sinful to do. No, I'm not saying that at all. However, you want reward, do what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. Say Assalamu alaikum. The sister tells her Muslim sister, Assalamu alaikum. Smile in her face. MashaAllah, you would be doing two things of the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. And the same thing, the brother meets his Muslim brother, he smiles at his face, and he tells him, Assalamu alaikum. He can add, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. and the other person responds, wa alaykum assalam. He can add, wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah. Just by that, with a sincere intention, one can gain reward. And when the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق, and I told you it means do not think little of a good deed. Allah Ta'ala might absolve a person, a Muslim, from hellfire. Even though this Muslim committed sins, many sins, he might be absolved from hellfire by a good deed that he does. And the one of us does not know which good deed might absolve us from hellfire. So don't think, but this is just one little good deed, so I will not do it. Do it and rush to do it. And today we are still alive and it's still Ramadan. Rush to do the good deeds. Okay, we are now attending, you are now in this lesson, and there is reward in listening to the advices of the Prophet ﷺ, and to the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. And afterwards, you teach what you have learned to others as well. The final advice I will give you, inshallah, for today is that also among the good things for us to do is to think well of our Muslim brother or sister. Again, we are living among many non-Muslims, and among many non-Muslims, if you have noticed, subhanallah, they tend to backbite a lot. You know, they tend to talk bad about each other a lot. But we, the Muslims, we should not gossip. We should not backbite the Muslim, subhanallah. We should think well of each other, okay? For example, if you see your Muslim sister on the street and she does not greet you, instead of thinking, what is it with her? Why is she not looking at me? Why is she not greeting me? Does she think she is better? Does she... Instead, think probably she didn't notice me. It could be that she didn't see me. It could be that she is so deep into her thoughts, even though she was looking this way. You know, the devil might whisper to you and tell you, how could she not see you? She was looking straight at you. It could be that she was looking at me, but she was really deep in thoughts and she didn't notice who I am. So think well of each other. This helps not to have animosity among us. You know, this helps actually spread the good feelings and love among Muslims and take away animosity and hatred among Muslims. So think well of each other, okay? And this is just an example that I gave you. Inshallah ta'ala, in our upcoming lessons after Ramadan, we will advise each other more with the advices of our beloved Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. And remember, he is the one to follow. His manners are the great manners. Inshallah ta'ala, we will start with our lesson, continuing what we were talking about previously. Today, inshallah, we will talk about invalidators of the prayer. We had spoken about conditions for the validity of the prayer, if you remember. Now, inshallah, we will talk about matters that render the prayer invalid. It means if these happen, the prayer will become invalid. All right? So the person then who is praying should avoid these, should not do these, because they invalidate the prayer. So what are these matters? The prayer is invalidated by speaking in as much as 2 letters or one single letter which carries a meaning, unless the person forgets that he is praying, and that statements that he said were few. When we say the person is speaking while praying, here we're talking about people talk. So we're not talking about reciting verses from the Quran. We're not talking about saying dhikr, because that does not invalidate the prayer. We're talking about people talk, okay? Not dhikr, not verses from the Quran. So if a person was praying and he started talking to another person, for example, who entered the room, people talk, how are you? What are you doing? For example, while remembering that he is praying, then this invalidates his prayer. Even if what he said were 2 letters or 1 letter that carries a meaning. In the Arabic language, we have some letters where 1 letter carries a meaning, such as the letter fi. The letter is fa, but if I say fi and it is still 1 letter, it carries a meaning, even though it is just 1 letter. So even if it is 1 letter, and the person remembers that he is praying, and despite that, he speaks with this people talk, this invalidates his prayer. Now, if one forgot that he is praying, he was not focusing on the prayer. He started praying and he's not focusing on the prayer. He forgot. So a person came in and talked to him and he answered back and he forgot that he is in the prayer, that he is praying. And he answered him. And what he said was few, and he said them while forgetting that he is praying, then in this case, it does not invalidate the prayer. Okay? We will move on to the second invalidator. The second invalidator of prayer is performing many moves, which according to some scholars are continuous movements lasting for the duration of 1 cycle, meaning 1 rak'ah. So according to some scholars, if a person while praying did continuous movements that don't have to do with the prayer, okay? Did continuous movements that lasted for the duration of 1 cycle, according to them, to some scholars, this invalidates their prayer. Okay, movements like, for example, some people while praying, they lift their hand, they scratch their head, then they do this, maybe, if they do a continuous movement lasting for 1 rak'ah, 1 cycle. Okay, in this case, according to some scholars, their prayer becomes invalid. According to other scholars, if the movements were 3 consecutive movements, according to some scholars, if they were just 3 consecutive movements, then their prayer becomes invalid. So some scholars said so, some scholars said the other one. However, the saying of the first one that I just told you about, for movements that last for the duration of 1 rak'ah, continuous movements that last for the duration of 1 rak'ah, 1 cycle, this saying is supported by stronger evidence. So what do we do then? While praying, let us remember not to do any movements that are unnecessary, okay? So to focus and concentrate that while praying, we are doing an act of worship. Let us focus and leave out the worries of life, what we want to do later on, our plans for after prayer. Just focus on this act of obedience that we are doing, this prayer. Another invalidator of prayer is performing 1 single excessive movement. In this case, if it is only 1, but it is excessive movement. Like what an excessive movement? Like jumping. Okay, this is considered an excessive movement, and this would invalidate the person's prayer if the person did it while praying. Okay, because this is considered an excessive movement. In this case, even if it is just 1, it invalidates the person's prayer. All right. So if it is an excessive movement, then even if it is 1, it invalidates the prayer. Another invalidator of prayer is adding an extra physical integral. There are verbal integrals of the prayer. Inshallah, we will talk about the integrals of the prayer after Ramadan in our lesson, inshallah. So there are verbal integrals and there are integrals of actions. Let me repeat that. There are verbal integrals and there are physical integrals, okay? Among the physical integrals is the ruku'ah, or the sujood, the prostration. These are physical integrals. So if a person intentionally, not while forgetting, intentionally adds an extra physical integral, his prayer would become invalid. Like for example, if a person, was reciting Al-Fatiha, after that he made ruku' and then he straightened up. What do we do then? We go for sujood. But if this person intentionally then added a second ruku', then the prayer will become invalid. So if a person adds an extra physical integral intentionally to the prayer would become invalid. Also, among the invalidators of prayer is performing a move, even if it is one move, with the purpose of playing. If it is with the purpose of playing, then in this case, the prayer becomes invalidated. Okay? Now, maybe you have heard that the Prophet ﷺ, while praying, he carried a young child. This is, of course, not with the purpose of playing. Okay, so to differentiate, this is not done with the purpose of playing. Okay, if the movement was done with the purpose of playing, then one's prayer would become invalid, even if it is just one move. Another invalidator of prayer is eating or drinking, except if one forgets and it is little. So when we pray, we don't eat and we don't drink. So if a person, while praying, forgot, again, he's thinking of something else, he forgot that he is praying. If while forgetting, he ate or drank and it was little, while forgetting, then it does not invalidate the prayer and it was little. However, if one remembers that one is praying, and despite that, one eats or drinks, this invalidates one's prayer. Let's say the person started the prayer and while praying, noticed that there is food left over in one's mouth. What does one do in this case? One takes it out. One does not swallow it. Okay, so if you started the prayer and then you notice there's still food in your mouth, you don't swallow it, you take it out. Okay. Another invalidator of prayer is intending to interrupt the prayer. And this is very important to pay attention to it so that the person does not fall into it. Intending to interrupt the prayer becomes invalid right away. So if a person while praying intends to interrupt the prayer, his prayer becomes interrupted, invalidated right away. Okay? So when the person prays, he does not intend that he wants to interrupt the prayer. No. Another invalidator is deciding to interrupt one's prayer if such and such matter happens. So if a person makes that contingent on the occurrence of a matter, he says, for example, if so and so happens, then I will interrupt the prayer, his prayer becomes invalidated right away. For example, if a person is expecting guests to come over, okay? And he thinks to himself, I will start praying. And he starts praying, and while praying, he intends that if the doorbell rings, he will interrupt his prayer. The prayer becomes invalidated right away, whether the doorbell rings or not. Why? Because this person, while praying, had the intention to interrupt the prayer if this matter happens. So they intended to interrupt the prayer if such and such happens. Prayer becomes invalidated right away, whether the doorbell rings or not. Okay? And another invalidator is hesitating about interrupting the prayer or not. For example, a person is praying, the phone rings, and the person hesitates. Do I interrupt the prayer and answer the phone, or do I continue my prayer? This hesitation, because of this hesitation, the prayer becomes invalidated. Okay? So even if the phone rings, the person is doing an act of obedience. Don't worry about the phone now. Focus on the prayer. So do not hesitate. somebody knocks at your door, do not hesitate. You do not break your prayer. You do not interrupt your prayer for that. Okay? So hesitating whether or not to interrupt the prayer makes the prayer invalid. So when praying, do not hesitate whether the phone rings, whether the doorbell rings, do not. Of course, we are talking about an obligatory prayer here. Okay, we're not talking about the sunnah recommended prayers. We're talking about the obligatory prayer now. And another invalidator of prayer, the final one we will mention now, is to complete an integral while the doubt persists whether or not one has established the intention to perform the prayer in the opening statement, Allahu Akbar, or if the duration of that doubt is long. What does that mean? You know that when the person wants to pray, we start the prayer by saying Allahu Akbar. And while saying Allahu Akbar, we establish the intention in our hearts. We establish the intention in our hearts that we are performing, for example, the obligatory Dhuhr prayer or the obligatory Asr prayer, depending on the prayer that we are performing. If a person started the prayer and after that doubted, did I make the intention or not? If this doubt, the duration of doubt, remained until an integral was completed, so the person completed an integral and is still doubting whether he established the intention or not, in this case, the prayer becomes invalid. Likewise, if an integral did not pass, but this duration of doubt was long, then also the prayer becomes invalid. However, if one doubted and right away one remembered, no, I did have the intention in the heart, so it right away remembered, then the prayer is still valid. Okay? Any question about the invalidators of prayer that we mentioned? And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Barakallahu fikum. Let us say tahleel together. Lillah. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات. May Allah Ta'ala accept your good deeds. May Allah Ta'ala grant you strength to continue performing good deeds. I look forward to seeing you inshallah Ta'ala after Ramadan. I ask you to keep me in your dua as well. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum.